Somewhere between the first brave step and the embarrassing faceplant lies the most honest version of you, and nobody talks about that part. We celebrate the wins, we archive the losses, but the messy, awkward middle, where you actually tried something, that gets quietly deleted from the highlight reel. Now, imagine you're standing at the edge of something you've wanted for years, a business idea, a relationship, a career pivot, and someone hands you a guaranteed crystal ball. It shows you failing. Do you still jump? Here's the real question nobody wants to sit with. Would a clean, comfortable, never tried actually feel better than a complicated, humbling, tried and crashed? Because we tell people to follow their dreams, but we quietly respect the ones who never risked looking foolish. Here's what the self-help industry doesn't put on the motivational mug. Failure has a cost, and it's not just emotional. Time, money, reputation, relationships, real things get spent in the casino of trying. And the house doesn't always lose. Cue the inspirational montage, slow motion running, dramatic music, a single tear, but what they cut out is the 6 months of confusion, the self-doubt spiral at 2 a.m, and the very real possibility that you end up exactly where you started, just with worse posture. Studies suggest that people who fail publicly often experience something called a reputational shadow, a lingering perception that follows them into future opportunities. So the next time someone says, failure is just a stepping stone, ask yourself, whose stepping stone and whose reputation? Some philosophers argue that a life unlived in pursuit of risk is actually the safer, wiser path. Epicurus practically built a whole school of thought on avoiding unnecessary pain. But then you've got the existentialists screaming from the other corner that a life without authentic attempt is basically a very long waiting room. Who's right? Maybe both. And that's exactly what makes this question so deliciously uncomfortable there's no clean answer. Just competing versions of regret. Either you regret trying or you regret not trying, and the universe hands you that bill regardless. What's fascinating is how the brain actually processes these two kinds of regret very differently over time. Research in behavioral psychology shows that in the short term, action-based regret, I can't believe I did that, hurts more. But over the long term, inaction regret, I can't believe I never tried, becomes the dominant gnawing one. So statistically, the embarrassment of failing fades. The ghost of the unlived attempt apparently does not. That's the psychological twist nobody prints on the poster next to the soaring eagle. And yet, not every failure is a disguised gift. Let's not romanticize that mythology too hard. Sometimes you try, you fail, you lose real things, and the lesson is genuinely just, that was a bad idea. Full stop. No deeper wisdom attached. The culture of fail forward has become its own kind of pressure, hasn't it? Now you're not just expected to try, you're expected to fail beautifully, extract profound meaning, reframe the disaster as a pivot, and monetize the whole thing into a TED Talk by Thursday. But here's what actually happens in the quieter, less cinematic version of real life. People try things, they fall short, they feel it deeply, and then slowly, without fanfare, they recalibrate. No keynote speech, no viral thread, just a person adjusting their compass and moving slightly differently than before. That recalibration, that invisible, unglamorous shift might be the most valuable thing attempting anything actually produces. It's not the success story or the failure trophy. It's the updated internal map you carry into every future decision. And consider this, the people who never tried that thing you're afraid of, they didn't escape consequence either. They just traded one kind of discomfort for another, swapping the sting of failure for the slow ache of wondering. Different currency, same emotional price. So the question isn't really, would it have been better not to try? The question is, which version of yourself do you actually want to be accountable to, the one who reached and missed, or the one who stood perfectly still and called it wisdom? Because here's the irony that the whole debate rests on. You can only ask, was it worth trying, from the other side of the attempt. The person who never tried never gets to run the comparison. They're arguing from a country they never visited. What we keep learning, century after century of human ambition and spectacular collapse, is that the attempt itself reshapes you in ways that safety simply cannot. you come back from failure different, sometimes broken, sometimes sharper, almost always more real. So yes, you might try and fail spectacularly. You might lose time, money, confidence, and maybe a friendship or two along the way. But the version of you that exists on the other side of a genuine attempt is a fundamentally more interesting, more textured, more honest human being than the one who played it safe and kept the receipt. The real question was never whether failure hurts. Of course it does. Nobody's disputing that. The question is whether you trust yourself enough to survive it, grow through it, and still believe the reaching was worth every single awkward, painful, gloriously human inch of it.